Which of these containers do you use, and have you heard of Tuff Jug? Tuff Jug is made in the USA, and they have containers for fluid. We're not allowed to call them gas cans, or I don't think they can call them gas cans. I can call it a gas can, I think. But anyway, you get the picture. These are containers that you put in the fluid that you want to. Now, if you're using these on a job site or for your work, things like that, then you may want to look into what your state regulations are, what your OSHA regulations are, on all those regulations, on whether or not you can use each of these containers in a manner to carry gasoline, diesel, and any other fluids that you're wanting to haul around. Otherwise, take it upon yourself to put whatever fluid you want to in whatever container you want to. Just use some common sense, why don't you? Anyway, we understand that these containers or gas cans are a pain in the tail sometimes. Whether you have this style or whether you have this style or kind of the motorsport style that we're seeing around a lot now, or any other type of rendition, metal cans with funnels on them and $150 cans. I mean, they go all way up when it comes to safety and regulations and what they do and blah, 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 blah. And then we even get into getting on Amazon or eBay or buying spouts and vents and drilling cans and trying to retrofit our cans. Anyway, we get it, right? They're a pain in the tail. Well, Tuff Jug actually has a few features that are not seen on other cans or other containers that we're really excited to see. The main thing is they're made in the USA, but let's take a deeper dive into these features and we'll compare them to the rest as well. Let's get started. Before we start comparing the Tuff Jug to other existing cans that we may hate or dislike or have problems with, let's just talk about Tuff Jug and some of the benefits, some of the features that we really like. Starting off with number one, made in the USA. So these things are designed and made, everything about them here in the USA. So we love that. Anytime we're seeing things come back to our shores in manufacturing, we love to talk about it. So that is the case when you're buying Tuff Jug. So very good feature to start off with, being made right here. A couple of other things about it is that if you take a look at their spout, a couple of things. And by the way, I believe they're saying they're on like Gen 3 of their Tuff Jug. So they've made a couple of iterations to improve on this and basing this off of user feedback and seeing things, in the field on their own. But they continue to improve on their jugs. And many times it's things that you can replace on the jugs, like the spout. So one thing that's improved is right here on the spout, which, by the way, you can probably see some differences on their spouts here. This is called their ripper cap, and this is called their auto spout, I believe. But anyway, if you'll look here, right here on the threads, these are not 3/4 inch threads. These are 1 inch. So a lot larger spout than your other typical cans or fluid containers that are out there that you see all the time. They've upped this to 1 inch. So they used to have kind of the standard of the motorsport industry, if you will, with the 3/4 inch threads, but they've upped that to 1 inch now, so there's no hindrance here on restricting any flow. And then you get down here, and this is still a 3/4 inch cap right here in 3/4 inch threads. Another thing you'll see is this vent tube that's going, and by the way, don't cut this down. This is meant to go all the way near the bottom of the can or of the container, and it flows all the way up here to the front of the spout as well. And for good reason, it's right there. And that's basically because this is called an auto stop spout. In other words, if you understand how fluids work, how containers work, and how they have to vent, once this goes down, let's say you're filling this jug up, and you put this down to here, once the fluid gets up to about right here, it's going to stop because there's no other way for the air to get inside the tank and displace the fluid. So the fluid stops. So that enables you to then bring the can out and not spill stuff everywhere. So it's going to automatically stop. We'll show that here in a few moments. Also, another thing that they've improved over time is here on the can itself, we have a tapered mouth there. So you see here in the mouth of the can or in the mouth of the container, that's tapered out this way. If you look in the spout right here, you'll also see the taper in addition to an O-ring in there. So we're not just mating two flat plastic surfaces together and hoping that they get a perfect seal and not leak. we have a tapered seal along with an O-ring that is going to help eliminate that. Also, they do recommend on these 1-inch threads here that you wrap Teflon tape on here. Now, I just so happen to have a little Teflon tape right here. And by the way, I like to use Blue Monster. I just feel like it's a better tape than your typical Teflon tape. I've seen too many plumbing videos where just regular old Teflon tape that they sell, you know, at every register at the hardware store just continues to fail. And so I like to, by the way, if you buy the Blue Monster online, you can get it as cheap as you get your regular Teflon tape at the register of your favorite box store. Would you do us a favor? Let us know in the comments what your favorite gas can or fluid container is. And while you're there, let us know why as well. By the way, I have done this before, I promise. I am going to give it a few wraps because it does, the threads fit pretty loosely in that cap, or pretty easily, I should say, not loosely. Turn that down. We have a hose clamp here on this end. There's not a hose clamp on this end. And by the way, if you do have to remove this, say your vent tube comes out, you can easily just take a hook tool or screwdriver and work that around. We already did it on one of ours. The vent tube was actually out of this. And then I could easily put the vent tube back in and slide that back on. But you could put a zip tie around there and be absolutely fine if you needed to. We have not had a sealing problem here at all. So again, we have 1-inch threads here. We have a tapered fit here with an O-ring. And this vent tube, by the way, doesn't just stick in the can. They recommend that you run it down the handle. So you can see down in here. You can see down in here in the handle, you can run that right through. It's not hard to hit that at all. And then put your lid on, and now you should be nice and sealed. Now, I do see one potential issue on this can, and I shouldn't call it an issue. I'm just saying, if you're holding this can this way with the cap on it and walking around with it, I could see a potential leak being right here because it is only using a flat surface to a flat surface with plastic to actually make that seal. So you can tighten that pretty tight and get those two mating surfaces to mate, and it shouldn't leak. However, I saw a quick solution, and I actually did it on one of our cans here. I took a number 14 O-ring, and I put just a little bit of black RTV, or you could use silicone, and glued the O-ring down in the bottom of the lid, and that mates up perfectly with the mating surface of this. And so you don't have to tighten it hard at all. That O-ring is going to seal against that. That black RTV is going to have no problem working with fuel, and just like 100% silicone won't either. And you just need a dab of it to literally glue it to the top of the lid. Don't use super glue or something like that. You need something flexible. But anyway, that will seal that perfectly if your lid doesn't seal on its own out of the box. Now, they also mentioned that one thing they've improved in their manufacturing is actually this seam right here in the manufacturing process, that this is a lot tighter bonded seam, that it will not leak, unlike maybe other renditions that possibly did. Also, they're able to multi-layer these cans as well. So in kind of in rub areas, maybe on the bottom, on the corners, they can actually apply more layers of the material there, so you have less issue of it actually rubbing through over time. You can also see here they have embossed letters on here. I just kind of highlighted those with a marker so you can see. So all of their jugs have the markings of gallons and liters on each one. And then I do like their handles being placed where they are, because some of the other jugs in the industry, and when you look at motorsports, you'll see probably this style, whether you're using the VP cans or I believe this one's from Tractor Supply. I think it's an off-brand, but same idea. This handle location is just not great. It's great to carry it, but it's not great for actually tipping. They do have a small indentation here on the bottom, but it is just kind of a hassle when pouring. This is a lot easier pour. So you're holding this horizontal, you put your tube in there, and then you dip it forward, or you put the ripper cap on, turn it upside down. But a lot easier handle placement on this. Also like the fact they do have a translucent tank, as you see right here. They have this in like Kawasaki green, they have it in red, in yellow, in blue. So many different colors they have available in the Tuff Jug. Now in situations like motorcycle racing and different forms of motorsports where you have a horizontal tank, in other words, you have a spout that sits near horizontal and you need to dump it fast, that's where the ripper cap comes into play. This little safety thing sits down here on the bottom. You just squeeze it, push it up, and then when you set this down and you push it, it just dumps fuel or fluid or whatever you're pouring very quickly. In fact, let's dive into how quickly these things pour compared to others. Okay, let's go ahead and take one of these jugs, and by the way, this cap here does not have an O-ring in it. It's just how it comes out of the gate. And if I turn this on its side and put it upside down, you see it does not leak. So I'm not saying that those will leak. I just saw an opportunity that it possibly could. Oh, actually, maybe leaking just a touch. Not really. Must have been some residual. Yeah, it is starting to leak just a little bit. So I would recommend putting an O-ring there in the end of that cap. But that's only if you're holding it upside down with the cap on it and hoping that it doesn't leak. And you see, without a vent in the can itself, it's still flowing pretty quickly. And once it clears the vent, it will get even faster. And watch this. You see me stick it down in there, it is not raising that level anymore. So I still had plenty of fluid in this tank, still another 1.5 gallons or so, but yet once I stuck the spout in there, it stopped the flow right at 2 gallons. So let's take our 2 gallons here. Let's put our spout back on. And by the way, here's our one with the O-ring on it. Definitely no leakage there at all. Excellent. So we're going to take our 2 gallons, dump it into here as fast as possible, and maybe we'll even time this. So 24, 25, let's call it 25 seconds. There was still a little in the tube there. So we'll call that 25 seconds to dump 2 gallons of whatever fluid you like out of the container with the auto stop spout. Now we'll take the same 2 gallons. Now the same 2 gallons in the, whatever this one is, I forgot. And let me get it up here and get ready to pull the trigger now. So not quite 2 gallons out of there in more than double the time. So over a minute. The other was 25 seconds. And it looks like we probably have some residual in here that didn't come out of the spout. Oh yeah, quite a bit of residual that didn't come out of the spout. So definitely a slower process, a more convoluted process. This is not a bad can, but again, you're limited on what you can do. You lose the caps, just kind of a pain. And then once this mechanism, I do know that they'll start wearing out. In other words, it doesn't get kind of full lift on some of these, and then it starts getting a slower flow as well. And by the way, I just pulled this lid off of here. One thing I have noticed on these is what just fell out of here is the O-ring, because the O-rings do tend to shrink. And so you pull your cap off, now that falls on the ground, now you've got contaminants, or you lose it altogether. but just kind of a pain because once that shrinks, it's going somewhere else. Now that's going to be the case on any O-ring, but you also don't have a tapered fit. You have a flat surface that's mating with that O-ring, which again, if it shrinks too much, then you're going to lose the correct mating surface area and it leak altogether anyway. So on this style jug, we have a vent that's right here that we either need to crack open or open all the way. If you open it all the way, you're going to risk possibly it actually leaking. Now, once it starts grabbing air, it shouldn't leak, but we've still seen these leak before. So let's see what happens. We'll leave it wide open and get the most flow. Mess is made already. There will start at 5 seconds. So that was a quicker pour, a little bit messier pour. I was literally trying to handle all that myself. Now, arguably, if I wasn't having to mess with a stopwatch, I would have had both hands. But it is a little more of a convoluted process trying to get this thing started and pouring. And we did have a little bit of leakage out of the vent as well. Again, once the air starts flowing really well through there, then you shouldn't have to worry about that because you have a larger liquid orifice, if you will, and a smaller air orifice, which will allow the air to go through here, displacing all the fluid that's in here, keeping it from leaking. But not always the case. And then also a thing to mention is being able to start and stop this is a real pain as well. You're, again, having to have both hands to make sure that you're dipping this down at the same time pulling this out, or else it's going to keep flowing. And then finally, let's check out the ripper cap. So we're going to put it down here in our 2.5 gallon container. And again, you want that vent tube going all the way through that handle down into the bottom of this container. Then you want to make sure you take your lock, just squeeze that, push that up there, and now it's ready to go. So you see nothing leaking. And it's venting all the air from here because I've pretty much got this spout sealed, but it's displacing the air in here up the vent tube and into the top jug and still being able to dispense all the fluid. Looks like it's going to take a little longer than the auto spout, but it's almost done. So 30 seconds, so about 5 seconds longer with the ripper cap. But again, just being able to turn it upside down, jam it in, and you can even seal the whole spout, and it's still going to get its air from the container that it's actually displacing the fluid in. And then one final feature for this, just like the auto stop spout on the ripper cap, right now we have 2 gallons of fluid in here. This is a 1.25 gallon container up to there. I'm not imagining this is going to hold 2 gallons, but let's see what happens when we dump this whole container into here. Again, no leakage. The fluid here. It comes right here. And there it stopped. So you see we still have fluid right here in this container. The ripper cap is still depressed, yet it did not overflow. Do it again. Still not overflowing. The fluid is stopped right there at the bottom of this nozzle. So basically right here at the bottom, once it hits that straw, that vent straw, it stops the flow. That's a really cool feature on these cans. So a couple of things before we get into pricing. We really like the Tuff Jugs. We think they do a great job in both flow performance as well as the features to make them just easy to use, easy to fill, easy to dispense, and even getting into special things like motorsports or motocross stuff or side-by-side stuff where you're trying to quickly fill a horizontal tank or a horizontal lidded tank with their ripper cap, or even the auto stop spout, that both of these are going to stop as soon as the fluid basically reaches the tip of it. Now they're saying keep this about 2 inches below level, and I think that's just to make, or 2 inches below where you want it to fill to. I think that's just kind of a marginal area to make sure you're not overfilling. But really, once it touches that vent tube, it pretty much almost instantly stops, and definitely on the ripper cap it does. So we love those features. We love that it's made in the USA. We're always excited about that. Were there other jugs that were faster? Yes, one of them, the VP style jug, seemed to flow a little faster. But again, it was kind of a little more convoluted and being able to start and stop that as well. I really wasn't trying to make a drama show out of it, but I do get that I was trying to handle the stopwatch and handle the jug at the same time. So I could have had some help there and have somebody else run the stopwatch while I ran the can. I get that. But again, the start and stop technology of the auto stop definitely helps in doing that. Also, like all the sealing features, we would like to see them come up with something, which I think they could do with either a tapered fit on the cap here, which again is only coming into play if you've got this thing upside down or, carrying it sideways and it's all the way full of fluid and you're walking around with it. Otherwise, that cap's probably absolutely fine. Or if you want to just take a number 14 O-ring, it's easy to find those and glue it into the cap like we did. That's going to seal it up quite well. Now let's talk about pricing on these. The smallest 1.25 gallon container comes in at just $23. I think $22.99, but we're going to call it $23. And then the 2.5 gallon container is coming in at $33, and the 5 gallon containers are going to be $38. Now you can get it in whatever color you want to. I believe there's blue, there's green, there's translucent or transparent, whatever this is here, where you can kind of see through it. You can get yellow, red, black, blue, you name it. You can pretty much get any color you want, and all of those colors are going to be the same price. Now, what is going to bump that price up just a little bit is what spout that you get, because it just basically comes with a lid, I believe. And then if you want the auto stop spout, you're looking at $25, $35, and $40. And then if you want the ripper cap, you're looking at $33 for the 1.25, $43 for the ripper cap with the 2.5 gallon container, and $48 for the 5 gallon container with the ripper cap. The auto stop spout by itself is going to run $19, and the ripper cap by itself is going to cost you $28. So if you already have the jugs, you want to add those things, you can buy them separately as well. You're definitely getting a better deal if you buy them jointly. Hey, check it out for yourself. We'll have a link in the description if you're interested. If not, that's no problem either. Also, let us know in the comments what you think about gas cans. What do you hate? What do you like? Do you like these Tuff Jugs? Does Made in the USA even matter to you? Hey, also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, let us know in the comments why. Have a great day and keep smiling.